Thank you for letting me interview you regarding Erickson's psychosocial stages of development. The purpose of this interview is for you to demonstrate your understanding of the theory and how the theory applies to you and your students you currently teach or plan to teach. Imagine I've never heard of this Erickson theory of psychosocial development. Briefly explain salient features of Erickson's theory of psychosocial development. What is the source of this information?
Well, in our text, Educational Psychology by Robert Slavin, he describes Erickson's eight stages of psychosocial development. Stage one is trust versus mistrust, which is really birth to 18 months. This is where we either gain or lose trust in the world. Most of it has to do with the the mother figure, satisfying our needs for food and affection. In this stage, according to Erickson, as well as others, this is where if it's inconsistent or rejected, or if the child feels rejected or that food and affection are inconsistent, the mother actually has a negative effect on the trust versus mistrust because they are now going to be a source of frustration. Stage two is autonomy versus doubt, and that's 18 months to 3 years. In this stage, by 2 years old, most babies are mobile. They're able to communicate with others. Children in this stage strive towards autonomy and do not depend on others, hence the terrible twos. They want to do things on their own, but will need guidance from others as they grow. Parents who are overly restrictive and harsh give their children a sense of powerlessness or incompetence, which can lead to shame and doubt in their own abilities. In stage three, that is intuition versus guilt, which is 3 to 6 years old. This is where children become more aggressive, exploring their own social and physical environment. 3-year-olds have a growing sense of intuition, which can and should be encouraged by adults. Allowing kids to run, jump, throw, slide. In this stage, it's important not to punish children who are attempting to do, their natural urges. We don't want to make children feel guilty about that because this could have a negative impact both now and later on in life. Stage four is industry versus inferiority, which is the 6 to 12. This is where children are introduced to schools and their social world really grows. Teachers and peers are now very important to children, and the parents are a little bit less important. Children will now want to make things and feel good about their abilities and their skills. And in this stage, failure creates a negative self-image, and a sense of inadequacy could also hinder future learning. In stage five is identity versus role confusion, which is the 12 through 18. This is where people are really trying to figure out, children are really trying to figure out the who am I. They're trying to figure out what they identify with. Children or adolescents will migrate more to their peer groups and further away from their parents. And adolescence is truly a time of question and change. Teenagers will start to experiment. They'll experiment with sex, with occupation, with educational roles. This is where they grow into who they are meaning to be. In stage six, this is intimacy versus isolation. So this is young adulthood. In young adulthood, this is where people are starting to identify more of who they are. They are preparing to share their lives with somebody else. They're more prepared to share and open up in a new relationship and trust and intimacy with that other person. Erickson explains the new person will be a partner in friendship, sex, competition, cooperation. And in this new relationship, it should really enhance the other person or enhance both people. And it shouldn't hinder each other to grow. And stage seven is generativity versus self-absorption, which is middle adulthood. And in stage seven, Erickson states that generativity is the interest in establishing and guiding the next generation. More commonly, people attain this by raising their own children, but simply stating it's more about teaching. Erickson states that this stage, people still need to focus on continuous growth. If they don't, a sense of stagnation or interpersonal impoverishment develops, leading to self-absorption or self-indulgence. And the final stage, which is in late adulthood, that is stage 8, integrity versus despair. So this is where people are really starting to look back on their lives. They typically will have an acceptance of accomplishments, an acceptance of failures, and a realization of your life was really your own responsibility. The understanding that death is imminent is in this stage. Despair can also occur if there's regret, or if they regret how they lived or where they are now.
Okay, at what stage of development do you see yourself now? Why do you think so?
I think I'm in stage 7. I think of it for multiple reasons. One, I have an 11-year-old, and with my 11-year-old, I look at who I am, what am I doing, because I want to make sure that what I'm teaching her is positive. I'm teaching her to be the person that I want her to be. The other part to that is just my desire to go back to school to become a teacher. I have, I think, knowledge, and I have life skills that I would like to help coach children on, and I think that would put me right there in stage 7.
Explain how being at this stage of development may influence your behavior and outlook in your classroom. On what do you base this explanation?
In this stage, I think wanting to teach is also wanting to make sure that you have students that want to learn. And I think that making sure that I understand what stage I'm at, that I do want to teach, that I do want to be involved. Also that people are looking at me as to be a leader and to be a teacher. So I think that has a lot to do still with that stage and what my input would be in the classroom.
Identify at what level your students are likely to be at in Erickson stages.
My students are most likely to be in stage 4. They are, I want to teach elementary school, so most of those students are going to be in the stage 4 phase, which is the industry versus inferiority. They're going to be starting to challenge themselves a little bit more. They're going to be leaning more towards their peers, looking for their teacher for instruction, a little bit less towards their parents. But I will have an influence on who they are at that time and also who they're becoming and some of the life skills that they'll be having. But they'll also be really focused on challenging themselves, understanding their ability, and taking all their skills to the next level.
Explain how being at this stage of development may influence their behavior and outlook in your classroom. On what do you base this explanation?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Explain how being at this stage of development may influence their behavior and outlook in your classroom. On what do you base this explanation?
Well, I think in the classroom and all the observations that I've done, I see that children do have an eagerness to learn and an eagerness to be accepted, an eagerness to work with others, and an eagerness to see that they are doing a job well done. So I think that stage also has a great influence.
What might be some disconnects between you and your students, keeping the differences in the 2 stages in mind?
Well, I think that my eagerness to teach is also going to have to be matched with their eagerness to learn. But I do understand that in that phase, if you get an older class, you might have some that are trying to figure out who I am. They might be ready to start challenging authority, be ready to kind of figuring out what's important to them, and what's important to them might not align with what I think is important to them. So understanding that as a teacher, not only do I need to teach them, but I might have to adjust how I'm teaching to match how they're learning, to make sure that they're really getting everything they're supposed to out of education.
Great. Any final comments?
Just that learning more about the 8 stages of Erickson's thoughts, it does align with a lot of the things that you learn as people are going through. Like if you see mothers that battled with postpartum, that didn't connect with their child, and how that might have an effect on them later on in life. So it's been very interesting to learn and kind of match those thoughts with the classroom talk. So thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.